didn't even get on the radar screen. We have Measure S. It's whatever it's going to be. Have they had any hearings downtown about this? Have they talked about the beacon studies, both on JJJ and Measure S? No. You know, you say 4.3 million, somebody else says 8 million. Somebody says, well, you can't build these things, and somebody says, well, if it's a commercial zone, you can build R3. It's all this stuff that's out there that nobody knows what the hell is going on. And these, from my perspective, I hope S passes. And if it's as bad as they say it is, then the city council can have an open and transparent discussion about it, put it on the ballot, and then we can go to town. But the way it is now, they're endorsing the status quo, where the developers make billions, the politicians collect millions, and we get the shaft.
Okay, I see lots of hands raised, and I'm not going to, we're not going to do that at the moment. We're going to go forward, and we're not done, so there's still time. Natalie, you had a question.
I just wanted to say that I think that as a city, some of the things you said about Los Angeles being different from other cities has been true, but fundamentally as a city, I think we need to stop growing out and start growing up. And that means looking at density and how we can do that properly. We need to drop our NIMBY attitude of, we can't be building these developments in our neighborhoods, because we do need to provide for better density. And part of growing up is also the idea of looking at public transportation and how that plays into all of this. And I'm sort of curious if Measure S, I haven't read through the whole thing admittedly, and that's why I'm here, is to learn as much as possible, if there is anything in there that looks at public transportation and how that fits into this big picture.
Writing an initiative is an interesting experience. I've had it now several times in various scenarios and at various times in my life. And there are restrictions on initiatives. Initiatives can only deal within a certain range of topics. In other words, you can't have 10 different things. So they are by nature limited, so they will not cover everything. No one initiative will ever solve all the problems of something. All initiatives are just a piece of the puzzle. And transportation, that would need to be its own thing, but there is the sense that that would be important when you're planning. And one of the reasons this initiative was written this way, because believe me, there were a lot of different people involved, with many people who put in many opinions, was what is something we can do in an initiative? Because there's things you can't do. I heard people say this should be done, and you can't even do it in an initiative. Is something that would spur the conversation. Believe me, that was a huge part of doing this, was to try to get this conversation going. Something that would do a general overall thing that would push us toward planning. And you can see it in how we've structured it, having these meetings where people could actually go. I really think a bigger issue, a more important issue than Measure S is the city coming together, the city talking to each other, the city putting input. And by the city, I mean the people that live in the city. And that's bigger than all of this, and that's bigger than Measure S. And we actually intend to continue to try to have a coalition. And within that coalition, people who agree and disagree on many, many things now exist, and we hope to go forward with the only agreement we need is that we all need to participate in the place we live in.
All right, so many hands. I'm so sorry, Mark.
Just to comment on the question relating to density and transit. The measure did include a pro-parking element in it, right? It could have exempted, could have allowed zone changes and general plan amendments like close to transit, right? They were thinking on transportation, but they were thinking from the perspective, the outdated perspective, that we essentially need to build parking everywhere because everyone owns a home and goes and drives through everything. So it's evident in the measure what the agenda of it is. Just the way it's positioned.
The fact is, no, this is a fact that has to be stated. Every time it's stated wrong, I'm going to state it. The measure cannot allow spot zones. It cannot allow general plan amendments anywhere. The ceiling of the building, next to, it cannot until something is changed in the charter. because it is the charter that forbids it. We cannot make small laws beneath the charter that do not coincide with the charter. That's like the Constitution of the country.
Okay, that's actually not, I didn't think that was, maybe I missed something, I didn't think that was Mark's point. But
Yeah,
then,
you said we did the law spot zoning and changes, which we could have done
Oh,
near
I see what you're
transit,
saying.
and I'm saying we can't do
oh,
that.
I
because we-
understand, thank you, I understand.
But
Okay,
then-
thank
but
you.
Mike forbid it.
So, Mike and then Jeff.
So yeah, I guess regardless of the spot zoning part, I mean, just the fact that there is like a permanent prohibition on reducing the parking requirement, you know, then that is not helpful to transit. I mean, if we voted a lot of us voted for Measure M, we want to make this large investment in public transportation. One of the biggest things that undermines public transportation in Los Angeles are the rules that say that if you build anything, it has to come with a lot of parking, right? Because when you build parking, you drive down the price of driving. If you drive down the price of driving, people have less incentive to get out of their cars and ride public transportation. You look at places all around the world that have really viable public transportation systems, they tend to just not have as much parking. When the gentleman earlier talked about how parking might be obsolete in 2 years, I don't know if in 2 years, but we might be coming to that point. But our zoning laws, right, say we have to build parking with everything. And so to double down on that, right, regardless of its intent, I don't know, I can't speak for the intent of the measure, but to double down on that is ultimately going to undermine our big investments going forward in public transit, for sure.
You know,
Okay, thank you, go ahead, Jeff.
on the transportation, first of all, that should be part of the transportation element or the mobility element of their general plan. And I think they've developed something. In terms of what's being built now being built in Hollywood and downtown and a variety of other areas, they're very expensive housing. I mean, you rent for $4 or $5 a foot, you're talking $4,000 or $5,000 a month of rent. Somebody who's renting those things, they're making $150,000 a year, and if you think they're gonna be taking the subway or the bus to work, you're sorely mistaken. They're gonna be fueled to work in their BMW. The third thing is that LA is very different than every other city in the country. I've lived in Boston, I've lived in Manhattan, I go to San Francisco a bunch, I've been in Chicago a bunch, and they all have central business districts. We don't have a central business district. I think I read there were 37 business districts here in the city, here in the county of Los Angeles. Santa Monica, Century City, downtown, Sherman Oaks, the airport, they're all Pasadena, they're all over the place. And so to build this transit that we're talking about, it's a long, long slug, and in very many ways it's gonna be impossible to do. So I think, so the stuff that we're building today, that is not transit-oriented density the way they think about it. People are not gonna be taking the subway to work. Some people will, but most of them will not.
Most
yeah.
people be taking Uber.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point about the changing nature of transportation, but go ahead.
But just to clarify, right, I mean, if you can have lower parking requirements, right, or even no parking requirements.
Why am I gonna park my BMW?
Right? If you think everyone wants to drive, and if you think developers are horrible, greedy people, they'll just go ahead and build the parking, right? Right?
Well, they're gonna,
Because they have to sell their building.
they have to do it.
So what,
Right.
but some of them will think they don't need to do it. Like the ones who built downtown under the adaptive reuse ordinance, right? And those buildings, they worked. They sold for a lot of money, right? And so what I'm saying is, if you want to at least give the transit system 70% of the county voted for, to spend millions and billions of dollars, maybe a good idea, maybe a bad idea, but if we are all behind it, then maybe we should think about loosening up this law that doesn't say you can't build parking, right? It's loosening up laws that say the government knows exactly how much parking you need to provide and where it has to go. Because that's what those laws do, right? And so if you say that you can't get rid of that at all, you are condemning the transit system to failure.
you know, that's true, but that's an extreme case and it doesn't pertain to Measure S. There is nothing in Measure S that says you cannot. I mean, it just doesn't do that. Right now,
No, Mickey, I want, let Mike go ahead.
My understanding is the Measure S says that going forward, after the 2 years, going forward, you can't reduce the parking requirements by more than 30%.
That's far from all. Which you said all, and I said it was far from all.
Okay, so, all right,
So-
I amend
so-
my statement to say
so
no
you
greater than
can-
70%.
You can reduce it by quite a bit in that way. The other thing is, if we do good planning, which this measure is more about obey the law, obey the city charter, and plan, and put more say in the hands of people and less say in the hands of developers and the city in terms of when meetings are held and in terms of EIRs. So if you're constantly revising the plans, then the things you're talking about, as they happen, we've all seen how long it takes for these transportation things to happen. I mean, I'm getting pretty old. I'm personally thinking I'll be on public transportation pretty soon. So, and I'm thinking, God, it's gonna take too long. I'm getting old faster than it's getting built. and you know, I'm thinking then the plan and the people having all the input in the plans as they change should be taking care of that. It should be, if it keeps being revised, as more and more public. But I'm kind of with the gentleman's move, the gentleman over here, because there you are. I mean, this has nothing to do with this, but you know what I'm wondering? How smart is it to build fixed rail when driverless vehicles are probably gonna take over?
All right, so
And when
let
you
me,
call Uber, you're gonna call a robot.
yeah,
not the
this is one of
person.
our challenges, right? We're planning for the past, and
Gotta
for
be
the
flexible,
future.
gotta change those plans often.
Okay, I'm not gonna respond to raise hands yet, but I am gonna circle back to what, I think where you were going when the woman in the pink sweatshirt was housing, and I mean, that's really a huge issue. And huge, and so I'd like to kind of open up with a kind of a big question or two. What do you folks up here think is causing the housing crisis, and what role does supply and demand play in that, and how would Measure S affect it? How's that for a big one? Mark, go for it.
I mean, the reason we have a housing crisis in Los Angeles, there's several reasons for it. It is that we haven't built enough housing, and that we have a very large portion of the population is low income. And those two pressures coming together has made Los Angeles essentially the greatest rental burdens in the nation. There's some places that are more expensive than LA, like the Bay Area, but they also have higher incomes there, so we have a combination of too little housing and a large low-income population, and it's causing the kind of human suffering I mentioned. And Measure S would make that problem worse by blocking many new units of both needed affordable housing and market rate housing, and tragically, many of the permanent supportive housing units that hopefully we all voted for to be funded by Measure HHH, which was passed by the voters in November. The city of Los Angeles that identified like a dozen public sites to accelerate the process of building this desperately needed housing. But of course, what do those sites need? And the punchline of this forum is that 10 out of those 12 sites that the city is setting aside to build the housing require a general plan. They'll be banned by Measure.
Have you said why they will require, why that will be?
Because
they won't be 100% affordable.
No,
Because
no, no,
on
no.
top of the housing will be a lot of affordable and expensive stuff will be built along with that affordable
Yeah,
housing. It will be getting a bit of the affordable housing subsidy. That's the big secret.
The general plan, the big secret of Measure S is that its exemption for 100% affordable housing is just for the 2-year moratorium when you get a zone change.
No.
It's a permanent ban on the general plan amendment, doesn't mention anything about 100% affordable housing. In fact, I've looked at every project.
General plan amendments are illegal by the
They're
charter.
done. They're done right now.
Nothing
Look,
illegally.
Okay, wait,
They're done.
wait a minute, am I not?
So's bank fraud.
It's occurring to me I'm not saying good.
Okay, so look, I've looked at, well, again, the last 5 years of all these projects. There's not that many. There's with like 150 projects, you know? And we've counted how many units would be affordable, and it's like 2,000 something. Well, that's about a third of the affordable housing units it's created. We only create like 1,400, we only create about 1,400 units of deeded affordable housing every year in the city of LA.